I never thought my life would take a turn like this, but here I am, typing this out to share my story. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Melissa for 6 years. We were that couple everyone thought was perfect. We laughed together, traveled, and even talked about starting a family. But I guess appearances can be deceiving. As I sit here, I'm still processing everything. The signs were there, but I chose to ignore them. It started with small things, a text here, a late night at the office there. Melissa, once so open and affectionate, began to withdraw. She spent hours on her phone, always willing to explain away any questions I had. "Just work," she'd say, her eyes darting away. I chalked it up to her demanding job at a marketing firm, but deep down I felt that something was off. One evening, while I was cleaning out the garage, I stumbled upon an old box filled with memories, photos from our early days, letters we'd written to each other, and even the receipt from our honeymoon. That's when I noticed a small notebook tucked away in the corner. Out of curiosity, I flipped it open, and what I found shook me to my core. It was a list titled "Things I Want," and at the top was the name of a real estate agent, Brian. My heart raced. Why would she need to contact a real estate agent without telling me? We talked about moving someday, but there was never a serious plan. The following days were filled with anxiety and suspicion. One night, I decided to stay up and wait for her to come home. Melissa claimed she was working late again, but something told me to trust my instincts. At around 11 p.m., I heard the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. I turned off the living room lights and peered through the window. My gut dropped when I saw her getting out of the passenger side of a sleek sedan, laughing with none other than Brian, the real estate agent. They stood there for a few moments, clearly enjoying each other's company before she finally made her way inside. I could feel my blood boiling, a mix of anger and heartbreak consuming me. I waited until she was settled in before I confronted her. I had to know the truth. "Melissa," I said, my voice steady but laced with hurt. "We need to talk." Her face dropped the moment those words left my mouth. A flash of panic crossed her features as we sat across from each other at the dining table. I laid it all out for her, the late nights, the phone calls, and of course seeing her with Brian. She tried to wave it off, insisting it was nothing, but I could see through her lies. "Jake, you're being ridiculous. He's just a client. We've been discussing properties for work." "You have to trust me," she said, her tone sharp and defensive. Trust? How could I trust her when the proof was right in front of me? I confronted her with the notebook. "Then why do you have this? Explain this to me, Melissa." Her eyes darted away again and she stammered, "I didn't mean for you to see that. It was just a silly list. You know how I get when I'm bored at home." Bored? My mind raced. Was she really trying to pass off her betrayal as a phase? The anger inside me flared, a feeling I had never experienced before. I could feel the tears stinging my eyes as I realized how deeply I had been betrayed. I stormed out of the house that night, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I needed time to think, to process what had just happened. The emotional weight was crushing. Anger, sadness, disbelief, all rolled into one. It felt like my world was crumbling around me. As I drove around aimlessly, I realized that I had to make a decision. I couldn't continue living in a lie. I loved Melissa, but this was a betrayal that cut through the very fabric of our relationship. I finally parked at the beach, staring out at the waves crashing against the shore. It was there, in the darkness, that I made a choice. I would not let her infidelity define me. I would take control of my life, and I would make her feel the consequences of her actions. I didn't know how yet, but a plan was beginning to form in my mind. I was going to make sure she would never set foot in the home we shared again. It was time to turn the tables. I took a deep breath and drove home, ready to face whatever came next. After that confrontation, I knew I couldn't go back to life as usual. The anger simmered inside me like a volcano waiting to erupt. I felt betrayed, and it was time for me to take control. I began plotting my revenge, not in a way that was violent or cruel, but rather in a way that would sting her where it hurt the most, her sense of security and the life we had built together. The very next day, I began my research. I dived headfirst into the world of real estate, learning everything I could. I wanted to buy a new home, the perfect home that would signify a fresh start for me, but also serve as a reminder to Melissa of what she had lost. I had a decent savings account, and I was determined to invest that into a property that would not only be a sanctuary for me, but also a place she could never enter again. I started talking to real estate agents, and I met with several to discuss my options. It was during one of these meetings that I crossed paths with Lisa, sharp and savvy agent who understood what I wanted right away. I could sense her enthusiasm, but what I needed was someone who could help me find not just a house, but a home filled with possibilities. I shared with her my vision, a luxurious, sprawling property that was stylish, modern, and far removed from the memories of my life with Melissa. As we browsed through listings, I envisioned the life I wanted. I thought about how I would fill the rooms with my own furniture, surround myself with my own things, and most importantly, rid myself of any trace of her. I wanted a place where I could heal, where I could reclaim my identity without the shadows of betrayal following me. Meanwhile, Melissa was blissfully unaware as she continued her charade. She would come home, and I played my part perfectly, acting as if everything was fine. I became a master of disguise, wearing the mask of a devoted husband while secretly plotting my escape. But I'll admit, it was hard to keep up the act. Every time she touched me or tried to initiate intimacy, it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Weeks passed, and I found a stunning property on the outskirts of town. It was everything I had dreamed of, a spacious home with large windows that overlooked a beautiful lake, a massive backyard, and an open floor plan that would allow me to host friends or just enjoy the solitude. The location was perfect, far enough away that Melissa would never just drop by on a whim. With Lisa's help, I secured the property. The moment I signed the papers, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was finally taking a step towards freedom. I didn't want to waste time. I planned to move in the following weekend. I started packing up my things, sorting through our shared life, and deciding what I wanted to take with me and what was better left behind. It was therapeutic in a way, letting go of the memories tied to Melissa. When the moving day arrived, I was filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. I had enlisted a few friends to help me, and as we loaded up the moving truck, I couldn't help but feel empowered. This was my new beginning, and I was ready to embrace it. The old life was being packed away, and soon it would only be a distant memory. As we unloaded boxes into my new home, a sense of peace enveloped me. I imagined how I would decorate each room, where I would place my favorite pieces of art, and how I would make this space truly mine. I even envisioned hosting friends over for barbecues by the lake, something that would have felt impossible just a few weeks ago. But in the back of my mind, I knew I had to inform Melissa of my decision. I wanted her to understand that I was moving on, and this was not a situation where she could simply walk back into my life. I planned for it to be a simple conversation, but I also wanted to ensure it would hit her hard. That night, after a long day of moving, I called her. She answered cheerfully, asking me how my day was. It made my skin crawl, but I responded as mildly as I could, telling her we needed to talk. When I mentioned we should meet at the old house, I could almost hear her heartbeat quicken through the phone. She agreed without hesitation. As I drove to the old house, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The moment of truth was near. I arrived first and stood in the living room, taking in the space one last time. Every corner was filled with memories, but I was determined not to let nostalgia sway me. When she walked through the door, the look on her face shifted from confusion to concern. "What's going on, Jake?" she asked, her hands nervously fiddling with the hem of her shirt. I took a deep breath. "We can't keep living like this, Melissa. I'm done. I bought a new house." Her expression morphed into shock, and I could tell she was scrambling for words. "What do you mean you bought a new house? We can work this out." It was almost comical how quickly she reverted to her old, manipulative self. "You can't just run away from this, Jake. We can fix things if you just give me a chance." I felt a wave of anger wash over me, but I held my ground. "No, Melissa, you broke my trust. You cheated on me, and I won't allow you back into my life. I'm moving on, and I want you to know that this is final." The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. She stood there in stunned silence, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of empathy. but it quickly faded as I remembered the lies and betrayal. I was reclaiming my life and there was no turning back. I walked out, leaving her standing there, and I felt lighter than I had in weeks. I was finally free. I had taken control of my life, and now it was time to embrace the new journey ahead of me. The days that followed my confrontation with Melissa were a blur of emotions. I had taken a monumental step, but the aftermath was not as easy as I had imagined. I moved into my new house, which felt strangely empty despite its spaciousness. I had decorated a few rooms, but the silence often echoed around me, reminding me of the chaos I had left behind. I was excited about my new beginnings, but I also found myself wrestling with the lingering feelings of pain and betrayal. I often replayed the conversations I had with Melissa in my mind, questioning if I had made the right choice. I didn't regret leaving, but the emotional weight was still heavy. I had to find a way to channel this into something productive. One evening, while unpacking boxes, I discovered an old guitar I hadn't played in years. It had been a gift from my grandfather, a reminder of simpler times before life got complicated. I picked it up, brushed off the dust, and started strumming. Music had always been a release for me, a way to express emotions that were hard to articulate. As the chords filled the room, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Over the following weeks, I threw myself into rediscovering my passion for music. I enrolled in a local music class, hoping to learn more about songwriting and performance. It was liberating. Surrounded by fellow musicians, I felt the heaviness of my past begin to lift. I wrote songs that reflected my experiences, a cathartic outlet for the pain and betrayal I had endured. As the weeks rolled by, I began to forge new friendships in my music class. There was Sarah, a vibrant and passionate singer-songwriter, and Mark, a laid-back drummer with a great sense of humor. They became my support system, understanding the emotional turmoil I had gone through and encouraging me to embrace this new chapter of my life. I felt a sense of camaraderie with them, a connection that I hadn't felt in a long time. But just as I was starting to feel settled, Melissa tried to reach out. It started with a couple of texts, her apologies wrapped in a mixture of regret and desperation. She wanted to meet, to talk about what went wrong. I had mixed feelings about responding. Part of me wanted to scream at her to remind her of the pain she had caused me, but I also recognized that I needed to stand firm in my decision. After a few days of her incessant messages, I decided to reply, but I kept it brief. I wish you the best, Melissa, but I need to focus on my new life. I hope you understand. I hit send, and a wave of relief washed over me. I wasn't allowing her back into my life, and it felt empowering to take that stance. Despite my resolve, Melissa did not take my rejection lightly. She began showing up at places I frequented, like the coffee shop down the street and even the local grocery store. It was unsettling to see her, and I could feel the old wounds reopening. Each encounter felt like a confrontation I wasn't prepared to face. It was one particular evening at the music class that things escalated. I had just finished a session when Melissa unexpectedly walked in, her eyes scanning the room until they locked onto mine. The shock on my face must have mirrored hers. My heart raced. This was not how I envisioned my new life. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Here now," I replied, surprised by her boldness. "I know I messed up, but I need to explain myself. Please just give me a moment," she pleaded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I hesitated, my emotions swirling. I didn't want to be that guy who succumbed to her charm yet again. Still, a part of me felt a pang of guilt. Maybe this was my chance to get closure. "Fine," I said, leading her outside to the parking lot. I needed space, away from the prying eyes of my classmates. As we stood in the dim light of the street lamp, she took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "Jake, I'm sorry for everything. I was lost and I didn't know how to handle my feelings. The affair wasn't about you, it was about me. I thought I could fix it, but I see now that I was wrong. I should have talked to you instead of running away." I crossed my arms, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You think an apology fixes everything?" I shot back, my voice laced with anger. "You didn't just hurt me, you shattered any trust we had. I deserve better than what you gave me." She looked down, swallowing hard. "I know, I regret it every day. I thought if I explained myself, maybe we could start fresh. I'll do anything to win you back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did she think I would just forget the pain and betrayal? Melissa, I'm not interested in rekindling anything. I've moved on. Your actions have consequences, and I'm not going to sit here and let you manipulate me again. I replied, feeling my anger surge. Her face fell, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But that compassion quickly faded as I remembered the nights I spent wondering why she chose to betray me. I have a new life now, I continued firmly. I'm focusing on myself, and I won't let you pull me back into your chaos. With that, I turned and walked away, feeling a mix of triumph and sadness. I had stood my ground, but I couldn't shake the feeling of loss. I had loved Melissa deeply, and while I knew I was making the right choice, it still hurt to confront the reality of what we once had. As I drove home that night, I couldn't help but feel a surge of determination. I was reclaiming my life, and while the journey was still fraught with emotional challenges, I knew I was on the right path. This was my chance to start anew, to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead, and to let go of the past once and for all. I needed to focus on my music, my new friends, and my healing journey. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of the new life I was carving out for myself, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The days turned into weeks, and I continued to immerse myself in my new life, finding solace in music and the friendships I had developed. I began to feel like a different person, one who was no longer weighed down by the past. However, I could sense that Melissa wasn't going to give up easily. Her attempts to reach out became more desperate, and as much as I tried to stay focused on my own healing, there were moments when her persistence made it difficult. One evening, as I was practicing in my new living room, I heard a knock at the door. I paused mid-strum, my heart racing. I had an inkling of who it might be, and when I opened the door, my suspicions were confirmed. There stood Melissa, her eyes red from crying, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "Jake, please," she pleaded, her voice shaky. "I just want to talk. I can't stop thinking about you. I know I messed up, but I need you to understand what I was going through." I felt a rush of irritation wash over me. "What part of I need space do you not understand, Melissa?" I snapped. "You were the one who chose to cheat on me, remember? I have nothing more to say to you." She stepped back looking wounded, and I felt a flicker of guilt, but I couldn't let her manipulation sway me again. I had worked too hard to reclaim my life. "Just hear me out, please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Give me 5 minutes." I hesitated, torn between sympathy and anger. I knew I had to remain strong. "Fine," I said, stepping aside and allowing her into the foyer, but only for a moment. I wanted her to know that I wasn't interested in rekindling anything. We sat on the edge of the couch, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. Melissa glanced around the room, taking in the boxes I had yet to unpack, the new daycare that was so different from what we had shared. I could feel her absorbing the changes, and I was struck by how clearly our lives had divided. "I miss you, Jake," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I thought about what I did every single day. I didn't realize how much I loved you until it was gone." I sighed heavily, feeling the bitterness rise within me. "You say that now, but where were you when you were with him? You made your choice, Melissa. You had every opportunity to come to me to talk about whatever was going on in your head, and you didn't. You decided to cheat." Tears began streaming down her cheeks. I was confused. I thought I could handle everything on my own, and then I got caught up in the excitement of it all. But it wasn't worth it. I see that now. I felt my resolve waver, but I quickly pushed those feelings aside. "This isn't about me. It's about your choices, and they have consequences. I can't forgive you for what you did. We had a life together, and you threw it away." Her sobs became more intense, and I felt a pang of sympathy again, but I knew I couldn't let that pull me back into her world. "Jake, I'll do anything to earn your trust back. I'm willing to work on myself. I'll go to therapy, I'll change, just give me one more chance." I shook my head firmly, feeling a mixture of sadness and frustration. "You can't just wave a magic wand and make this all go away. I need to move on, and I can't do that if you keep coming back into my life. I'm sorry, but this is it." I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. "You need to leave." Melissa looked up at me, despair etched on her face. "Please, Jake," she begged, reaching out. "I love you." That word love had once meant everything to me. Now it felt like a hollow echo of what we once shared. You don't get to say that after what you did, I replied, my voice steady. You've shattered my trust and love doesn't work like that. I'm done, Melissa. With that, I ushered her out the door, closing it firmly behind me. I leaned against it for a moment, my heart racing. I had stood my ground, but the emotional weight lingered. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the remnants of the encounter. As the days passed, I found myself diving deeper into my music. I started writing new songs, channeling my anger and sadness into every chord. I began performing at open mic nights, sharing my story with strangers who resonated with the emotions in my lyrics. It was empowering and healing, allowing me to connect with others who had been through similar experiences of betrayal. One night, I performed a song titled Broken Trust, a raw reflection of my journey over the past few months. The lyrics spilled out of me, the rhythm matching the heartbeat of my pain. As I sang, I saw nods of understanding from the audience, and it struck me how many people had faced their own heartaches. After the performance, a woman approached me, complimenting my vulnerability and storytelling. Her name was Anna, and she was warm, funny, and incredibly supportive. We struck up a conversation, and as we talked, I felt a spark I hadn't felt in a long time. It was refreshing to connect with someone new, someone who didn't carry the baggage of my past. We exchanged numbers that night, and I left the venue with a mix of hope and exhilaration. I wasn't ready to jump into anything serious, but it felt nice to be seen again. I was finally beginning to open myself up to the possibility of happiness, to embrace life beyond the pain. However, just as I was starting to feel a sense of normalcy, Melissa reappeared in my life. It was during one of the music nights that I spotted her in the crowd, her eyes locked on me as I performed. I felt a rush of anxiety wash over me. This was the last place I wanted to see her. It was clear she was trying to gauge my reaction, and for a moment I faltered. But as I continued to sing, I found my strength again. I poured every ounce of my emotions into the performance, letting the music drown out her presence. After the show, as I walked off stage, I felt her approach me. "Jake," she said softly, her voice a mix of hope and uncertainty. I turned to face her, my heart racing. "What do you want now, Melissa?" "I just wanted to see you perform." "I've been coming to your shows," she admitted, her eyes sincere. "I see how much you've grown, and I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you." The words stung, a reminder of a past I was desperately trying to escape. "Why are you here? What do you want from me?" "I want to be in your life, Jake. I want to support you even if it's from a distance," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I've hurt you, and I want to show you that I can be better, that I can change." I looked at her, the weight of our shared history pressing down on me. "You can't just waltz back into my life and expect everything to be okay. You've caused too much damage." "I know," she replied, her expression earnest, "but I'm willing to put in the effort to work on my issues. Please just give me a chance to show you." I felt my heart harden in response. "You had your chance, Melissa. I can't be your safety net anymore. I'm moving on with my life, and it doesn't include you." I turned and walked away, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. It was clear that Melissa wasn't ready to let go, but I had to remain steadfast. I had fought too hard for my freedom and my peace to allow her to pull me back into her chaos. As I stepped outside, I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. I wasn't just moving on, I was reclaiming my life. And as I looked ahead, I felt a flicker of hope for the future, one that was finally mine to shape. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. Melissa's persistence to re-enter my life continued to weigh on me, but I refused to let her catch me off guard again. I focused on my music, my new friendships, and the positive changes I was making in my life. I was determined to keep moving forward, no matter how hard Melissa tried to hold on. As I continued to perform at local venues, my confidence grew. The songs I wrote became a testament to my journey of healing, and I found solace in sharing my story with others. The more I performed, the more I felt liberated from the chains of my past. Each time I stepped on that stage, I was reminded that I was reclaiming my voice and my identity. At one of the shows, Anna came to support me. We had been texting regularly, and this was our first time hanging out in person outside the music class. She arrived with a warm smile, bringing a small bouquet of wildflowers. "I couldn't resist," she said, handing them to me. "I wanted to cheer you on." As we chatted before the show, I felt a connection that was both exciting and refreshing. Anna was different from Melissa. There was no baggage, no history of betrayal. She was genuine, and being around her brought an ease I hadn't felt in ages. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and as I performed that night, I found myself looking for her in the crowd, seeking her approval and energy. After the show, we spent hours talking, sharing our dreams and aspirations. Anna was passionate about her own music career, and we connected over our mutual love for songwriting. I felt like I was rediscovering a part of myself, one that had been buried beneath the weight of heartbreak for so long. Just as things started to feel like they were falling into place, I received a message from Melissa. It was a long text filled with apologies and regrets, her usual playbook of emotions. It was as if she was desperate to remind me of what we once had, hoping to chip away at the walls I had built. But I had seen that script play out before, and I wasn't going to let it ensnare me again. I took my time crafting a reply, wanting to be firm but respectful. "I appreciate your message, but I need you to understand that I'm moving on. I wish you the best, but I can't be part of your life anymore." The moment I hit send, a wave of relief washed over me. I could feel the tension in my body ease as I reaffirmed my decision to break free. But I knew that Melissa wouldn't take this lightly. The next few days passed, and I found myself immersed in rehearsals and songwriting sessions. I was determined to focus on my music and my new relationship with Anna. Just as I began to settle into this new routine, trouble found me again. One evening, I returned home from a jam session to find a note taped to my front door. My heart sank as I recognized Melissa's handwriting. It read, "Jake, I need to talk to you. It's important. Please don't ignore me." I felt a mix of anger and frustration. Why couldn't she respect my boundaries? I had made it clear that I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I crumpled the note in my fist and tossed it aside, deciding that I wouldn't give in to her attempts to manipulate me again. But that night, I found it hard to sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was going to escalate her efforts. I knew she was capable of anything, and the thought of her trying to disrupt my life again sent a shiver down my spine. The next day, I decided it was time to take action. I reached out to Lisa, my real estate agent, and explained the situation. "I need your advice," I said. "I'm worried about a potential stalking situation. Melissa won't leave me alone, and I want to ensure my safety." She was understanding and recommended I take precautions. "You might want to consider changing the locks or even getting a security system," she suggested. "It's important to feel safe in your space." I took her advice to heart and arranged for a locksmith to come the next day. It felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders as I took further steps to reclaim my safety. I was determined not to allow Melissa to invade my life any longer. After the installation, I felt a renewed sense of empowerment. I was actively taking charge of my situation, and with each step, I felt more in control. I spent the evening playing music and writing lyrics, channeling my angst into my art. But just as I thought I was finding my footing, Melissa made her big move. I received a call from Anna while I was in the middle of writing. "Hey Jake, you might want to sit down," she said, her voice tense. "There's something you need to know." "What happened?" I asked, my heart racing. "I saw Melissa at the coffee shop. She was asking around about you, and she mentioned something about wanting to talk to you." It felt really off, Jake. "I think you need to be careful." Panic surged through me. I had tried to distance myself from her, but it seemed she was escalating her efforts to break into my life again. "Thanks for letting me know, Anna. I appreciate it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. After ending the call, I felt my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't let this continue. I needed to confront this once and for all, but I had to do it on my terms. That evening, I decided to write a letter to Melissa. I wanted to make it clear that I was done with the games, that I wouldn't be an option for her anymore. I poured my heart into the letter, expressing my feelings of betrayal and anger, but also my determination to move forward without her. I sealed the letter and addressed it to her, intending to drop it off the next day. As I prepared to leave, I glanced back at my new home, a sense of pride swelling within me. This was mine now, and I wouldn't let anyone take that away from me. The next day, I went to the coffee shop where Melissa had been spotted. I felt anxious, but I knew I had to confront her one last time. I walked in, scanning the room until I spotted her sitting at a table in the corner, nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup. I approached her, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. "Melissa," I said, my voice firm, "we need to talk." She looked up, surprise flashing in her eyes. "Jake, just listen," I interrupted, holding out the letter. "I've moved on with my life. I want you to understand that this is final. I'm done." Her expression shifted as she took the letter from my hand, her eyes widening. "You can't just walk away from everything we had, Jake. We meant something to each other." I shook my head, my voice steady. "What we had is gone. You threw it away. I deserve better than to be part of your chaos. I won't let you pull me back in." Tears welled in her eyes, but I steeled myself against any emotion that threatened to creep in. I had made my choice, and I wouldn't allow her to undermine my resolve. "I hope you find peace, Melissa," I said, turning to leave. As I walked out, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. I had stood my ground, refusing to be manipulated again. I was reclaiming my life, one step at a time. And as I drove home, I felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, and I knew that I had the strength to face it head on. I was finally ready to build the life I had always dreamed of. The days that followed my confrontation with Melissa brought a sense of clarity that I hadn't experienced in months. I had finally drawn a line in the sand, and it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I was committed to moving forward, and I wanted to embrace the new life I was building for myself. Anna and I had begun to spend more time together, bonding over our shared love for music and our dreams. We explored the local music scene, attending shows and open mic nights where I could perform. With her support, I felt emboldened to be more vulnerable, channeling my life experiences into my songwriting. One evening, as we sat on my porch strumming our guitars, I felt inspired. "What do you think about putting together a small concert?" I asked. "Something where we can share our music and connect with the community." Anna's eyes lit up. "That's an amazing idea. We could invite some local musicians and create a night dedicated to storytelling through music." And so it began. We spent the next few weeks organizing the event, reaching out to fellow musicians and creating a buzz on social media. The more I immersed myself in this project, the more I realized how much I had transformed. I was no longer the heartbroken man who had lost everything. I was a man reclaiming his destiny, fueled by passion and creativity. On the night of the concert, the energy was electric. The venue was filled with a diverse crowd, people from all walks of life, each there to share in the experience of music and connection. I stood backstage, my heart racing with anticipation. It felt surreal that just a few months ago, I was drowning in betrayal, and now I was about to pour my heart into my art. As I stepped onto the stage, the spotlight illuminated me, and I could see familiar faces in the crowd, friends from my music class, supportive locals, and of course, Anna. Her encouraging smile gave me the confidence I needed. I opened with a song I had written about the journey of healing, the lyrics raw and vulnerable, reflecting the pain and growth I had experienced. The crowd was captivated, and as I sang, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. Each note reverberated through my soul, a powerful reminder that I was reclaiming my voice. After my set, Anna joined me on stage, her vibrant energy lighting up the room. We performed a duet, weaving our stories together through music. It was an incredible moment, one where I felt truly connected to not just Anna but to everyone in the audience. I realized how powerful art could be in bringing people together and healing wounds. After the concert, as the crowd mingled and shared their thoughts, I felt a sense of fulfillment I had never known before. It was a celebration of not just music but of resilience, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Anna and I were surrounded by friends celebrating our success. When I spotted Melissa in the back corner of the room, my heart sank for a brief moment, but instead of feeling anxious or angry, I felt oddly calm. She was watching me, and I could see a mix of emotions on her face: regret, sadness, and perhaps a hint of longing. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of everything I had overcome. This was my night, and I wasn't going to let her presence tarnish it. I focused on the joy around me, celebrating with Anna and the friends who had supported me through the darkest times. As the night wound down, Anna and I found a quiet moment outside, away from the noise. "You were incredible tonight," she said, her eyes sparkling. "You truly have a gift, Jake." I smiled, feeling a warmth spreading through me. "I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. You've been such a huge part of my healing process." She looked at me, her expression softening. "I really like where this is going, you know. You're such a talented person, and I think we could create something beautiful together." I felt a flutter of excitement at her words. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope for a future that didn't involve the shadows of my past. I took her hand in mine, feeling the connection spark between us. "I like where this is going too." As the night air settled around us, I realized that I was finally ready to embrace the next chapter of my life. Melissa would always be a part of my story, a painful reminder of the past, but she no longer held power over me. I had found my voice again, and I was no longer afraid to use it. Over the following months, Anna and I grew closer, collaborating on music projects and sharing our lives in ways that felt genuine and fulfilling. I continued to perform and write, pouring my heart into every song. With every note I played, I was reminded of the strength and resilience within me. I also made sure to keep boundaries with Melissa. She continued to reach out occasionally, but I stood firm. I didn't engage with her attempts to rekindle a friendship. I focused on what was important: my growth and my happiness. Reflecting on everything I had endured, I realized that betrayal and heartbreak could be transformative. I had learned the importance of self-love and the power of letting go. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, and I was ready to face whatever life had in store for me. Music had become my therapy, my outlet, and my connection to the world. It had helped me heal and rediscover myself after so much pain. I was grateful for the journey that led me here, and as I looked toward the future, I felt a wave of excitement for all the possibilities ahead. I had taken my life back, and I would never let anyone take it from me again. I was Jake, a man reborn from the ashes of betrayal, ready to embrace the beauty of life, love, and the music that filled my soul.